If the first one goes okay, we'll have a quick second one. I would like to do it almost immediately, and we'll have a quick second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself if they'd like to have me there.
I told colleagues and the President of the USA and European friends that Putin definitely does not want peace. He wants to occupy our state. And we all truly understand this. Putin will not be able to deceive anyone.
I was a little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap.
But it is impossible to talk about Ukraine without Ukraine, and no one will accept this. Therefore, the conversation between the U.S. President and Putin can certainly be important for their bilateral track, but they cannot accept anything about Ukraine without us. And I really believe it. I hope that the President of the United States understands and realizes this.
We had a very good call. He was on the call. President Zelensky was on the call. I would rate it a 10, very, very friendly. I know the leaders because I was at NATO, as you know. I took it from 2% to 5%, 2% that wasn't paid, 5% that is paid, which is trillions of dollars in defense capability. No, it was always going to be, I was going to meet with President Putin, and then after that, I'm going to call the leaders and President Zelensky. I'm going to call President Zelensky, and then I'll call, probably in that order, the leaders. There's a very good chance that we're going to have a second meeting, which will be more productive than the first, because the first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing. Again, this is Biden's war. This isn't my war. He got us into this thing, and it should have never happened. This war would have never happened if I were president. But it is what it is, and I'm here to fix it, and I'm here to stop 6,000, 7,000 people last week. 7,213 people last week were killed, mostly soldiers. But missiles being lobbed into towns don't exactly help either, but mostly soldiers. And Ukrainian and Russian, they're not American soldiers, but if we can save a lot of lives, it would be a great thing. I've stopped 5 wars in the last 6 months. And on top of that, we wiped out the nuclear capability of Iran, obliterated it. It's turned out to be a correct word, by the way, because some of the press said, well, maybe it wasn't obliteration. It was obliteration. And we're going to meet with, I would say, the second meeting. If the first one goes okay, we'll have a quick second one. I would like to do it almost immediately, and we'll have a quick second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself if they'd like to have me there. And that would be a meeting where maybe it could be absolutely work. But the first meeting will not work that out. Certain great things can be gained in the first. It's going to be a very important meeting. But it's setting the table for the second meeting. I think the second meeting, if the second meeting takes place. Now, there may be no second meeting, because if I feel that it's not appropriate to have it because I didn't get the answers that we have to have, then we're not going to have a second meeting.
Mr. President, will Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
There will be
be?
consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences.
When you meet with Vladimir Putin Friday in Alaska,
Yeah.
do you believe you can convince him to stop targeting civilians in Ukraine?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've had that conversation with him. I've had a lot of good conversations with him. Then I go home and I see that a rocket hit a nursing home or a rocket hit an apartment building and people are laying dead in the streets. So I guess the answer to that is no, because I've had this conversation. I want to end the war. It's Biden's war, but I want to end it. I'll be very proud to end this war along with the 5 other wars I ended. But I guess the answer to that is probably no, because I would have had a good conversation with Vladimir. I knew him very well. I got along with him great, actually. We had I had to go through the Russia hoax. And it was actually, it was a strain on the relationship. I actually told him, I said, you know, they got this phony investigation going on, Russia, totally phony, created by Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, and Hillary Clinton and the whole group of them. And it made it very dangerous for our country because I was unable to really deal with Russia the way we should have been. I'm looking at Pam because I hope something's going to be done about it. These people put our country at great danger. And Adam Schiff, it was all made up. It was a hoax. The Mueller report came out. They all hated me. They had 18 Trump haters. And they said I did nothing wrong. They couldn't believe, they couldn't find anything after years of investigation. It was all a hoax. It was a hoax created by the Democrats, but in particular Schiff and Crooked Hillary, the whole group. And now we've learned all the stuff that's come out over the last 2 months is incredible through intelligence. And hopefully something's going to happen with it. These are people that put our country in danger, in real danger. I want to thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Today, we spoke with President Trump, President von der Leyen, NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte, President Stubb, President of France Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Meloni, President of Poland. The entire week from last Wednesday, all these very intensive communications, dozens of these communications between all of us European leaders, between Europe and the USA, between us and representatives of other parts of the world, who aspire only one thing, peace in Ukraine, peace in Europe, were ongoing. Today, we discussed our joint positions with the President of the USA in America. There was a coordination conversation before this. As I told you, we agreed on common principles. 5 principles, said Friedrich. I want to thank you for your leadership in this direction, Friedrich. This is exactly the format of negotiations. Everything concerning Ukraine should be discussed exclusively with Ukraine. We have to prepare a trilateral format of conversation. First, there must be a ceasefire. There must be truly reliable security guarantees. Today, by the way, President Trump spoke about supporting this and about America's readiness to participate. Also, among the agreed principles, Russia cannot have a veto, right concerning Ukraine's European and NATO perspective. And peace negotiations should be combined with appropriate pressure on Russia. Sanctions must be in place and should be strengthened if Russia does not agree to a ceasefire during talks in Alaska. These are effective principles, and it is important that they work. Of course, we discussed the situation on the battlefield today. Of course, today we discussed the situation on the battlefield. I told the President of the United States and all our European colleagues, Putin is bluffing. He is trying to press ahead before the meeting in Alaska on all fronts of the Ukrainian front. Russia is trying to portray that it is capable of occupying all of Ukraine. Certainly, this is their desire. Also, Putin is bluffing, as if sanctions are not important to him and that they do not work. In reality, sanctions help a lot and hit the Russian war economy. Yes, it is true that Russia has several times more weapons. In particular, they have 3 times more artillery. But Russia also has 3 times more losses. And this is a fact. I told colleagues and the President of the USA and European friends that Putin definitely does not want peace. He wants to occupy our state. And we all truly understand this. Putin will not be able to deceive anyone. We need further pressure for the sake of peace, not only American, but also European sanctions. And together our union of partners can truly stop Putin's war. We talked about a meeting in Alaska. We hope that the central topic of the meeting will be a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire. This has been repeatedly mentioned by the President of the USA, mentioned in America. He suggested to me that after the meeting in Alaska, we will have contact with him, and we will discuss all the results, if there are any, and we will determine our next mutual steps. Now we will have a meeting of the coalition of the willing for the sake of peace and security, and this is truly our goal.
Just yesterday, you said during a conversation with Ukrainian journalists that Ukraine will not leave Donbass in exchange for a ceasefire. Has your position changed in any way after today's negotiations here in Berlin? And a question for Chancellor Merz regarding the ceasefire. Could the lifting or easing of sanctions against Russia be possible if a ceasefire is reached? And what security guarantees could Europe accept in such a case? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. As for my position, it has not changed because it is based on the Constitution of Ukraine. As long as the state constitution has not been changed, the position of the guarantor of this constitution cannot be changed. Today we discussed these issues. Of course, these are very complex issues. I want to immediately emphasize that any issues related to the territorial integrity of our state cannot be discussed without consideration of our state, our people, and the will of our national constitution of Ukraine. Thank you. You know, it seems to me that the success of any negotiations primarily depends on the outcome and the mood. Right now, our mood is completely united, and it has been very positive. All the partners have demonstrated one voice, one desire, one principle, and one vision. This mood is already an important step forward. As for the historical nature of the moments, I would not want to use very loud words now. Let's wait for the result. In any case, the key issues that you mentioned either later or at the beginning of this question, regarding our principles, regarding our territorial integrity, in the end, everything is decided at the level of leaders. It is impossible to resolve this without Ukraine. And by the way, everyone also supports this.